Right, okay. Morning, everybody. Let's open with the council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitiki District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. There are no apologies and no public forum. Are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared for items on the agenda? There are none noted. Confirmation of the order of business. I see no need to change the order of business. Confirmation of our minutes held 19th of March. Taken as read. Are there any amendments required? No amendments, so therefore can I have a mover for the recommendation?
Ready to move.
Thank you. Councillor Day, second, Councillor Fee. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Next item 7.1, our follow-up items. There's a few there that are going to be marked as closed. Right. No comments from staff on this one. Okay. No question. Any questions from members of the committee?
No, just the only thing is, having skipped through the apologies, can you just record the apology that I have meeting at 10 o'clock first?
Yeah, thank you. Do we need a move in a second if I think we'll just note it? Yes.
I'll move, but I'll be excused at 10 o'clock.
And I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if there's no comments or comments, can we have a mover for the recommendation? I'll move. Second, Councillor Dave. All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. You've got ahead of yourself. It's actually not the chair's report, it's the other one. My apologies for the late chair's report. I think it's been circulated. Any take it as read? Any comments or questions? The water reform is, well, it's only a small line. There's actually a significant piece of work, and with the amount of change, and even once that magical date of 3rd of September passes, Chief Executive, there's a huge amount of work to actually then start implementing it.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, in my MES report, which will come out later on today, or
Yes.
I make comment on exactly that space that people think we've made a decision, but the amount of work available that has to be done is immense, and I've detailed some of that.
Just with reference to your chair's report, Chair, I note in it that you mentioned the significant amount of other work that still continues on in the background of councils. The same thought was discussed at the Council Assets and Infrastructure meeting just last Thursday. Same points were raised, that there was still a significant amount of other stuff goes on in the background, whilst the local water done well gobbles up the thinking of many. There's still a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's actually, while it's flying under the radar in terms of our risk register across the sector, I'm aware of one chief executive currently, because of where they're at, that's consuming about 60% of their work. So they don't, there's 60% of the time that's not available to monitor other projects, and I think that's a risk for the sector. Plus, when you actually then, which is not in the report, you know, the government talk about other RMA reforms, building reforms, potentially contribution reforms, all that other workload. They think that we're just sitting on our hands waiting for them to give them more work. The other comment I want to talk about, it doesn't make a lot of headlines, well, it does in the wrong way sometimes, about procurement going wrong, right? And I think procurement was probably, looking at our big spender here, I don't know, unfortunately, right? Procurement is a big risk for all councils. So that's just something, and it's interesting that while OAG is talking about another government department that didn't manage things terribly well, the risk is that we as the sector, we across the sector, are not looking at Rangitiki at all. The issue is that the sector can actually get procurement very wrong as well. There's another council that's dealing with some public excluders, so I can't talk about it, but you know, procurement that hasn't gone well.
Just a comment from me, if I can, Mr. Chair. We are very fortunate to have Leanne in this space because she brings with her a wealth of experience within the procurement space and holds us to account for that. So a high level of scrutiny comes at us from Leanne, which is council should be pleased to hear that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it gives me good assurance, right? I'm aware of some councils where there was a willingness to not accept the good procurement advice by senior leadership. And that, to me, right, can lead to also other problems.
Perhaps another risk to consider around the procurement is that once a procurement decision has been made and proper process has been followed and rationale to make that, it's perhaps loss of oversight of that procurement decision once it is made. That can also lead to equal amount of risk. If you're not following and keeping a focus on that decision, keeping people abreast of what's going on, you can make a decision and walk away from it and think it's going to sort itself out. But keeping eyes on the follow-up procurement once the decision is made is pretty critical, and that's a very big risk.
My view is, if you know, the wheels will come quickly off if you haven't planned to begin with, let alone done the monitoring. Right?
Correct.
Councillor.
It's not covered in your report here, but I'm just interested in if you've got any comments around the rates capping versus long-term plans and yeah.
I mean, well, the issue for me is it's not government policy yet, right? But I think it's certainly on the government's work plan. What I think will be interesting is their manifesto for the next election. For like what they propose now, water has been removed from governance from local authorities, may not be removed per se in terms of the councils that are keeping it in-house. I think that's a significant risk for those councils. The amount of water, if this council's not proposing that at this stage, if it was to keep it in-house, the amount of work and additional resources to keep it in-house is significant, in my opinion, unless you're going with a CCO. It's most councils have underestimated the amount of work that would require, particularly when you come to full separation of the ring fencing of the finances and accounting for it, reporting on it. And not only that, you would also have Commerce Commission looking over your shoulder, and also LGFA. So, yeah, but your comments about rate capping, no? I think I think we've got to wait till the manifesto, while the government have talked about it. I don't believe it will be in the immediate future, right? But we'll see what happens. That's all we can. Mayor Andy.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. However, we have an LGNZ conference and at that conference, rate capping, will be asked for an opinion as to how much work LGNZ continue to do in this space. So the sector is that will advocate, and I'm presumably we will, for that work to continue. So there's some immediacy in terms of our sector.
Oh, I think understanding, yeah. And if you look at the Australian experience, in my opinion, it hasn't worked for a variety of reasons.
Some sectors in Australia have it and some don't.
And the other question, I'm not sure if part of that work with LGNZ is doing, but how do you decide what is an appropriate level of rates capping? So for a council that has actually put its rates up consistently over a period of time, are they treated the same as a council that needs to put their rates up because they're actually behind the eight ball, right? So that's to me, that's one of the fundamental challenges with rates capping. What are you trying to achieve? But also, for a council that's increased its rates, and I'm just plucking numbers out of the air, say, for example, significantly, say only, say 10%, right, for the last few years, which is probably exorbitant, compared with a council that has only increased its rates by 3%, they've actually got a significant, the council that's only increased it by 3% because 3% isn't keeping up with costs, have probably got a significant deficit they need to catch up with. So how do you actually manage that as well? It's a lot of fish hooks. And I know some of the states in Australia providing, if you're doing this and this, they'll exempt you and all sorts of, and the government initially, when they said it, they were also saying that they'll only rates cap it on the non-essential stuff. Well, what's non-essential as well? So, but I support that LGNZ keeps on doing the work. But whether it's listened to or not is another story. Anything further on my report? I'm happy to move. The appropriate, I move it. No, I'll move to the seat. Do I have a second there?
Yep.
Oh, I think Councillor Simon. Right, Councillor Simon, any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Next item, 9.1, our work programme. Again.
Good morning, everybody. I'd just like to go through a few topics in this report. One that I've tidied up and reflected the timelines as per our last risk and assurance meeting. So we've just got some more regular fraud reporting, for instance, and insurance reporting, doing those alternate quarters so that we're not just writing reports for the sake of writing a report and stating nothing. Clearly, if there's anything that comes up, it would be brought to the first committee meeting available. I just want to touch briefly on the internal audit. So we're smack bang. We've had a week and a half of audits. We had PwC turn up on Monday along with our cash handling audit, and unbeknown to us, Audit New Zealand also sending in some prelim work. So it was a busy few days for the team. But needless to say, the audits are ongoing. So we're chugging through our internal audit program really well. I'm really pleased with that. When I get my desk cleared a bit from local water done well, I want to go to market to appoint an internal auditor rather than having to do quotes every single time, because that's quite time consuming and cost prohibitive. But it is good that we are making good progress. PwC, when they did the GST FBT audit, and they will do a formal report, but there was nothing that made us scream and think, oh my goodness, we're in trouble. So that was really reassuring. The other thing I'd just like to touch on is around bullet points 3.1 to 3.3. You will see that I've reviewed the sensitive expenditure policy. It actually wasn't due for review, but there was just a couple of things that popped up that I really wanted to put in the policy to clear things. One was around the documentation that we need, as in receipts when people claim on hospitality, just so that we can demonstrate if we're audited or even a Lagoima that we aren't purchasing items that aren't that are precluded from our policies. And also we had not an issue around fuel cards, but we have a couple of fuel cards due to the ruralness of where we live that aren't allocated to a car, they're actually allocated to a department so we can get fuel for mowers and chainsaws and stuff like that. So we're actually going to have them, if this policies, which actually gets adopted by exec, is approved, that will be specific to departments, particularly around our places like Taihape where they can't get into a staff member that might have a be able to do it through a purchase order, so they can get those items. It will be managed at a third tier level, signing it off, so that good arm's length, good receipts, just to protect, more than anyone, to protect the staff officer buying those items, because it's making sure they are never questioned because they can demonstrate what they've done and why they've purchased it. 3.4 to 3.6 is just my typical current areas of concern. Local water done well, that continues to be a significant workload right across council for staff and elected members, as you can appreciate. So that's ongoing, and we've started now to meet with the new, as officers with the new 3 councils, so that's quite good as we start to build new relationships. Ongoing reforms and changes to legislation continues to be a topic, and has come up across the different groups that I'm across and what that might mean, and particularly across potentially long-term plans. Capital spend remains low to date, but we have done a lot of work on this as officers, and it has flowed through to our annual plan that we adopt next week, all going well. And it's just reflecting that we had quite a significant carry forward. And what we need to realise is if we're carrying forward, it's very hard to do the full program of work and the carry forward. So we've phased that differently, and also to recognise some of the work that's taken a bit more time to get to where we thought we'd be, such as our buildings. So our 25-26 annual plan will reflect a different schedule of the program of work. Other than that, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Simon.
Just on 3.4, local work done well. With the work that's been done with Pōkeno and Ruapehu, does that work now? Could that work meld well with Parawhenua and Palmerston North from what you've seen today?
Absolutely, and we discussed that on Monday in Bulls, the 5 councils, and there's a lot of that work that we've done, like our modelling. Our modelling won't change no matter who we go with. What will change is the savings that we might share across the councils, depending on how many councils. If we end up with 5, there'll be a greater share of savings that supports that local water, as opposed to harmonised pricing.
Thank you.
Local pricing.
Councillor Fee.
I'd just be interested in, were you thinking it might be at the moment? Do you think that it's going to be 3 or 5?
I've got no idea. It seems to be a changing feast, and it depends who you talk to. So I might hand that to the CE.
We've actually got an item further on the agenda all around local water done well,
Yeah,
so I
it's a
thought I'd
Sorry,
make some
jumping
comments
part-
there, if that's all right.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, apart from local done, water done well? Got a couple of, so just on page 19 of the agenda, just in terms of the other policies, we had the risk management policy next review 25. Is that bearing in mind with technically only got one, well, I don't know whether this committee will even exist depending on what happens with the election. What's your plan to bring that back? The risk management policy.
The risk management policy will come to I think it's a September meeting.
Okay, thank you.
That's my plan.
Good, brilliant, thank you. Happy with that? Mayor Andy?
Yeah, thank you. In terms of process with regarding to an election process, for instance, whoever takes over as mayor or resumes, there'll be a process on the working with staff to establish committees. And for instance, if the structure was changed, there would be a process then about making sure any action captured within previous committees was either reassigned or distributed in some way. So it'd be like a submarine search and locate process.
No, I think Leanne's got it under control, bring it to the next committee, which is pleasing, right?
Yep.
I think
Yeah, on
you've
my
got
schedule,
so
program of
have you
work.
got my comments from
Yes, I
Carol?
have.
Brilliant, thank you. Just in terms of the work program, right? When's our insurance technically due? It's
1 November.
1 November. So I note that, we've got the insurance update is December and June, so the December one is the report back. So I'm just thinking, trying to link how with 1 November is what happens if there is a significant change in the market and council may decide to alter significantly what it insures and how it insures. And the example I use is, and you're not with Marsh, but Marsh last year, before, right? Last year struggled to get public indemnity insurance, and they had to take a significant reduction in the available total cover that was available.
So through the chair, I was part of a council that used Marsh and the challenges we faced with that. Fortunately, we are under Aon, and everything that we've heard from our brokers so far is that it's not going to be any material movements. We still have our liability insurance covered. We have just had our first review of our 3 water assets. They get revalued obviously for insurance, but also for our annual report. And they were very close to stagnant and increased. So that actually in some ways is quite good for us with our insurance because it doesn't mean a significant increase. We were looking to try and bring in a workshop on insurance just around what needs to be covered and what isn't covered, but actually we had done that a couple of 3 years ago, so nothing significantly changed. So at the moment, I'm quite comfortable with where we're at, and Lorraine and the team who manage it at the front face are very comfortable with the communication we're getting.
Right, thank you. Significant cost, that's all. And it can fluctuate, right? Very, very quickly. Any other questions on the work program, including the 2 attachments being the internal audit and sensitive expenditure update? Councillor Dave?
Yeah, just on the sense of expenditure, fully understand the reasoning behind that. Good to see it's got 1-up sign off, which is absolutely appropriate. But I see it section 13, page 30. Just seems to be a couple of double ups in there in the section what is not covered by council, referencing 13.1.7, 1.8, 1.9. I'm just not sure if they need to be in there twice, or is there a reason for it that I'm not seeing?
Was the any personal goods and services?
So
And then it's
13.1.5
also listed
and
down at
13.1.8
and
are the same.
parking and traffic fences is mentioned
Oh,
twice.
there's 2. Yeah.
Just making sure you read it.
Yeah,
well, I'm pleased.
Intentional.
Well, it's actually in the existing policy.
Well, I'm
That's
just looking at it to
okay.
go, am I missing something there? But
Yeah.
No, I'll read that.
I just wonder if it's actually staff need to be told twice, that's all.
Yeah. Actually, one of our GMs did point that out, but it was after I'd actually already put it in this report, so it
Thank
will
you.
get corrected, but thank you.
Thank you.
6 as well.
Here, Andy?
Yes, in terms of and it is stressed in the appendices around cohort that these are recommended or levels. However, literally, it's a decision often made in my office and in terms of what is appropriate. The exception being Totara, the hui that we have engagement with over Whangahu River. I've asked that committee to detail what would be the expected level of cohort, because there'll be a series of marae visits over that. And I think it's coming in at $100 as a palfrey instead of 200. So we're trying to get some, I know it's against some of the principles, but we're trying to get some expectation and definition level around that. And that's been taken through that committee. But I just wonder where those guidelines came from, because some of them are a little bit different to what we're currently working under.
Through the chair, I took those directly out of the current 2024 sensible expenditure policy. I didn't change them at all. I didn't.
We just might make sure Karen's not working to an older version. Yeah.
There are, it's listed as guidelines, but they're probably, in some cases, they're a little bit high.
Yeah, you actually, I just want to follow up on that. I've actually, interestingly, you raised a really good point. So this is only a policy, right? So the question that really is attached to that is, so what's the reporting requirement when a policy is, there is valid reason for a policy not being adhered to? Now, I have seen, and I'm not suggesting it happened here, but I have actually seen, particularly for Koha, that there was a report to an appropriate council committee where the amounts in the policy have been exceeded, or just to close that loop for transparency. It's not less, it's when it's more. I just wonder if that's appropriate.
It's really, really difficult, because
yeah.
most of the koha that we give is not reflected by way of receipt.
Yes.
And that is an acceptable and common practice, which doesn't quite sit well with accountants, the people in those roles. But that is you. The concept is you give what you can.
Yes.
That is appropriate to the time.
Yes.
And so there is always going to be an adjustment, really.
Yeah.
And and sometimes, for instance, it goes through different processes as well. For instance, often I am on the pai, and I will give a koha in a different way to the standard practice of somebody coming on, if you like. So there's a high degree of trust involved here. With the big one at Ratana, nowadays we can usually be given a receipt, but that's the exception.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
And if I'll just direct the committee through to 10, so 10.1 is the chief exec has to approve in advance for officers. And 10.2, we actually keep a, is it 10.2, I thought 10.3, we keep, 10.3, because we have the register, and if there's anything exceeds 500, it's reported at the next available finance and performance committee. So we've got different steps in place.
There's a lot of paperwork behind these.
Absolutely. So we have a lot
They're
of,
comfortable with
Yeah.
their approach.
to make sure that we are safe.
So the question is council comfortable with that?
Two other very minor ones with travel. For instance, a lot of councils have a process around expectations of international travel. It's not really for us, but some of the processes that are put in place with essentially big councils, if you are travelling long distance and you are then going to immediately engage with high level negotiation, then it is expected that you would travel business class rather than economy, because you're arriving tired, jet lagged, in a decision-making process that could be very expensive.
Yeah.
Also, the use of a Coro Club. I don't have a Coro Club and I've never asked for one. But for people that are flying often, it is an asset that you can go and literally set up your computer and have something to eat and prepare. And I think that is a normal function at that sort of level.
Maybe I'm talking out of turn, I've had one for a very long time, right? It has actually probably saved me, when I was working for myself and had to pay for it, right? It saved me. I didn't think it as a cost, I saw it as a saving. The amount of times that you're able to eat, as you say, work, right? When otherwise you'd be sitting in a public environment. Yes, some airports are better than others. But also the other issue is when things go wrong, you've got immediate help desk actually in the lounge itself. And that to me, when I was working for a council, there were a couple of times I used to fly regularly to Wellington. I got home only because I was actually in the lounge. Right? Otherwise, the council would have actually, because it's weather related, the council would have actually incurred another $300 or $400 worth of travel accommodation. And that to me is also an advantage.
I mean, most of my fellow mayors actually have them as part of council business.
I have observed. Yeah. Right. Councillor Fee, you had a question.
I was just Your Worship, sorry, the term I thought you used was toha.
Sorry?
Did you use a term
Toha.
toha? And
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with what that is, sorry.
It's part of the engagement process over the Whangahu catchment. Waitata.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just checking, was there an action required from the mayor's comment? Did that need to be
It's already
action?
in there.
It is in there.
Yeah, I think all I'm saying is, right, Leanne, as we pointed out, it's actually already pointed out that there was actually anything over and above is reported, right? Unless the committee want, I recommend.
Yeah, I was just referencing the Coro Club.
Oh, it's already in the, it's already
That's
in
in
the,
the
it's already in the policy. What you're saying is,
No, I'm happy with it. I'm just wouldn't know if there was an action.
Look, I'll be honest, I think that our chief executive should be part of her position. I think, did Peter have one? Paid by council?
I'm not sure what Deputy Mayor might.
Couldn't remember, to be perfectly honest with you.
I know that some of the Crown Institutes I work for, they had a very clear view of travelling X amount of times a year. We should have koro. And I know that when I worked at Ag Research, I was travelling to Hamilton every month, and the value in having koro, because it became my meals, I could work, etc., like you've mentioned. And so if you've got a CE, for instance, travelling a lot, then you would certainly be having that conversation. I know South Island, because you've got such a hard lot, it's just even harder to travel. It's definitely, I think it's something that we should always consider.
I think it's that business case, which is Leanne has already talked about, is the important thing. It's not just as of right, it's actually, there's a business case that's actually documented why you actually need it. Okay, I think that's the important thing. It's not just as of right. Absolutely, that, yep. So no changes to the sensitive expenditure. Any changes to the internal audit program, or any questions regarding that?
Just one question, if you look at all the dates and stuff that are in there, short of putting them on a spreadsheet, there's some overlaps, I'm sure. Capacity to do this, it's good, it's within when you look at all these work programs and the reviews and things you've got to do, it's been thought, can we do this? And
We make it happen.
The exec team have discussed the program and it's realistic, and I think Liam made the point before that we are looking at getting our own internal auditor, which will assist with some of these as well.
Yeah. if it's realistic, then yep, I'm happy. Just as long as
Subject
it's-
to anything crazy happening that we can't foresee.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion, any further questions? So we've got 3 recommendations there. Do I have a mover for 1, 2, or 3?
Happy to move recommendation 1.
Recommendation 1. You don't want to be brave to do all 3?
Well, I can do all 3.
Sorry?
Yes.
Or can we do all 3 together?
Second.
Second, thank you. Like, I just do it as one big recommendation, right?
And
One, two, and three.
move the, without,
Without changes, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so just take it as one recommendation.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you very much. Right, next item, 10.1, health, safety and wellbeing update. Thank you, Sharon.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is our standard health, safety and wellbeing report. No real surprises in there. I'm happy to take it as read. Very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor.
well, for me, thank you, Sharon. Again, it is a standard one that we do see through other council channels on a fairly regular basis, but it occurred to me when reviewing the other night, and I looked at the chief executive on this one, I just wondered if sometime throughout the year, and it wouldn't need to be often, or if it was every 6 months even perhaps, we just picked one of your line managers to come and talk to us and hear it from the ground floor a little bit as to anything that they were experiencing. I mean, we see these reports and we just take it that that's how that's occurred. But I just wondered if, for example, and I'll use Parks and Reserve, which does carry a significant risk in its operations, but then it shouldn't be diminished that the risk is our front of office staff and the managers in that, perhaps Galen. And I just wonder if maybe it would be prudent to hear from them direct as to, for me, it would give me comfort that they that our health and safety culture is embedded and hear it from those individual team leaders just to hear from them. And I wondered if maybe it was a good practice.
Can I, right, just, I've got one council, there's only one out of, they actually schedule at least one annual visit for council members, right, as in committee members as well as any other councillors, to actually have a site visit.
We've done that as work is done. We've certainly done that. Yes.
And so, but it's actually as part of the audit and risk, right? So it's including me, right, as chair to look at, and therefore that gives the opportunity for the elected members, right, or the members of the committee to actually see what's been done, but also to have the discussions with staff and also to eyeball what's actually on the ground as well. And it's not about checking it on, it's actually getting assurance that his health and safety is alive and health, safety and wellbeing is alive and well.
That's exactly my point, Chair. This document here runs a risk of just being a document that gets glazed over. And I just wonder if it's worthwhile giving some thought to that.
I think it's a very sensible idea because some of the innovation that some of our teams like Animal Control, Parks and Reserves, like you've said, they've actually worked really hard on their own approaches.
Yes.
So bringing that in front of the committee would actually be good. So maybe it's something for the next training. We could implement that. Leanne and Sharon could bring that through as part of a regular, and I'm sure those staff would love to tell you, what they've actually been doing as well. They'd feel quite thrilled about that.
Just along those lines, a couple of things. I've found the site visits that we've had really valuable. And I think it would be really good initiative to have that and annually do something. We had our Mitariti Awards for council on last Friday, and health and safety, I just was thinking afterwards, was mentioned a lot in those awards. And I was just further to what we were just saying, was concerned that recognition was getting lost there, and that it needed to come in some sort of format to this committee so that we can recognise exactly, especially the dog and, well, there was a number of incidents that I thought people that were not there would not appreciate that that's happening. So I was hoping to get that captured somewhere.
So as councillors, we're in danger of being isolated at various times, just being in this room and not being out, seeing what's going on. There was a presentation by the IT department earlier this year, I think it was, regarding some of the things they were doing there and the awards they got, and that was really, really insightful for me and helpful to understanding how council operates on a different level. So I'd be all in favour of that.
Thank you. Anything further on the agenda? On the item. Sharon, in 3.4.3, you know, on the last sheet. So we're basically work is being undertaken, right? So when are we going to, you know, good to see the work is being undertaken. So when are we going to see some future reporting? Is that next time or is that the time after?
I would hope that we can have some next time. Look, the challenge we've got at the moment is we're confident that the site visits and health and safety planning is being done. It's being captured in a number of different formats, which makes it difficult for me to bring those together to present a full picture to the committee. So we can, as we speak, I've got meetings set up for all of our contract managers to work out what's going to make it easy for them to collate all the data in one place. Because right now we're able to talk about what we know about. This is what we might know about.
So it's what we don't know about that we should know about. Yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Fee?
Just along that, we've obviously about to change our roading contractor, and they're probably one of our most significant risks. The Higgins reporting, we always kind of questioned a little bit. So as you know, with that new relationship, has there been a better system set up?
I can reply to that, Mr. Chair. We would expect vastly improved reporting on all aspects of the roading contract, including health safety. With them starting on the 1st of July, they are working on all of those, including this one.
Great, thank you.
At the moment, they're working on the biggest priority areas as well, and Nana and I have been working through that with them. Like RFS is actually one of our biggest priorities for them to focus on that. Health and safety from everybody's point of view is absolutely critical, but it's managing those priorities. So we are working quite closely with them on how all that gets conveyed back to this council.
Thank you.
If I can add to that, myself and their respective person who've already connected from joint PCB perspective and have started sharing documents and ideas. They have a zero harm approach, and from what I've seen, it's very, very good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments on the health, safety and wellbeing update report?
No, I'd just add that we've got a full, I think it's 3 days comprehensive induction process to bring them to have that alignment, which is really quite a neat new way of how we're managing contracts. From what, as I understand, it's a really positive way to be doing that. They're actually going to feel very much part of our team. Awesome. So a lot easier to see those sort of issues arising.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, nothing further. So can I have a mover for the recommendation, please? Mayor Andy, second councillor Fee. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Next item is our financial risk report. Thanks, Lorraine.
Kia koutou, Mr. Chair. This report, just I think it's a relatively new report that we've pulled together. Just a few things to note. Our external debt, council's external debt is unchanged since the last report that we did. We're looking at an increase of another 5,000 borrowing, 5,000, keep saying 1,000, 5 million borrowing next week. It will take us to 54 million for the year, which is substantially less than what was projected. We've pulled together our debtor position And as you'll see, there are 3 parts. We've got rates debtors, sundry debtors, and other debtors.
Thank you. Mayor Andy?
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to cover this just before I have to leave. We have sold 2 properties under debt collection principles. We should be noting that somewhere that has occurred. And as a very small side issue, when we effectively displace someone from their home, we also have a requirement to make sure that there is some process where we can check on them as to what they're going to do next. I have actually, the one person who has been displaced at Whangahu, I have left a message on his phone, wishing him well and asking him, what happens here from now on, and I haven't received an answer. So that obligation has been covered. But we should be documenting, I think, that we have been through a process and have recovered substantial owed money that has been owed for a long time.
Through the chair, I wonder if the place for that would be, we have a report to Finance and Performance on Debt Management Central. And given that they handle that process for us, maybe we could start capturing it in there, if that would be ideal.
Yeah, I think through you, that it does 2 things. First of all, it absolutely signals that you can't just refuse to pay rates without consequence. And that we are prepared to go down through these processes, that it's not a great process. And we should then be able to document and say there have been numerous attempts. Because that's always the accusation that comes to council. You have got rid of these people and dumped them. But have a process where it is recorded and say there have been significant attempts over many years to engage with these people, because they stand in front of the newspapers and the press and say, nobody's talked to us and they've just kicked us out.
Happy to look into that and bring that to the table, because you're correct, obviously, that we do multiple levels of trying to contact in so many ways, and go beyond trying to find solutions so that they, like for us, selling land or properties is an absolute last resort. And to get to that point, the courts have to approve it and they have to be able to see our documentation to demonstrate we have done this process and tried every way.
You're noting too that often it involves horizons. So the particular one you're talking about involved both councils, and both councils have to come to a position on whether to go to a rate sale or not. So, and that occurs, and like you say, that one in particular has been going on about 4 years at least.
Yeah, at least.
Can I just ask a question about that?
Yeah, thank you.
And I don't know if you can give us the answer. I don't think so, but is that a normal thing? Has it been a normal thing in the last, how many times in the last 6 years would we have had that?
Yeah, very small handful, only would be a couple, because we do go the extra mile. And when people give you a commitment, we take them on face value to actually oblige by that commitment, and then give them more opportunities, which is the case with this one. And then when there's just a consistent failure of payment, then that leaves us with no choice really. It's not fair on other ratepayers.
Just to move slightly on that one, obviously if you've sold out a property and you've recovered some debt, that's fine. But when we look at some of these other debt parcels, for how long do we continue just to keep rolling them over, increasing interest? If it's, I mean, I don't know, does council have a provision for doubtful debts in its budget lines? I mean, it's not uncommon for a lot of people, but if you do, at what stage do you say, if we do get anything out of this, it might be 2 cents on the dollar. At what stage do we go, let's get this off the balance sheet, let's get it off the books, let's deal with it. Otherwise, it just becomes a growing number that we see each time we do the thing. At what stage do we do that?
So there's 2 parts to that. If we go to the rating one, there's regulations around 6 years.
Yeah.
So there's that, recognising rates remain with the property. So if we sell that property, obviously the rates go with that, depending on how we do things. We write off rates and we bring a doubtful debt report to the Finance Performance Committee at the end of the financial year. Audit check on how we're doing that, because we can't carry everything on our balance sheet if it's just absolutely not realistic. So we look at all of those things as part of the end of the year. That being said, I do everything in my power not to have to write off rates, because at the end of the day, that is, somebody else has to pick that up.
Yeah, not really referring to the rates. I'm talking mainly to 3.8.2 and some of these other debts, sundry of other debts outstanding.
So that one, for instance, that would talk, that one,
Yeah.
3.8.2 will come off our balance sheet.
Yeah.
Because there's absolutely nothing, we'll be able, high chance there's nothing we can do, and it's actually out of our hands.
And what about 3.9? Sorry, through you, Chair, just to clarify that, because they're outside the rating side of things with a recoverable via a rating sale.
No, these have got nothing to do with rates.
Yep.
This is, no, it's only rates, as in water and property rates that come under the Rating Act that are attached to the property. All of these ones are attached to a personal company,
Okay.
totally different.
Yeah, so there is also a potential there that could become a doubtful debt.
Correct, absolutely, high chance on other debtors
Yes.
become your doubtful debts, absolutely.
But there is a report that would come back if you were to move it off your balance sheet.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Andy, I'm sorry.
Yeah. There's a whole series of different practices here and the reports, first of all, the reports often indicate a level of rate debt, and depending on the timing of those reports and the timing of our income streams, somebody can be a week over when rates were due, and then we regarded as, so a whole lot of that chunk is paid. But also there are rates that are accrued to land that we will always write off through process around Maori land that is either unoccupied or not accessible, etc. And then there is a process around that. Then there are rates around that council will elect to write off because they're nonsense. So for instance, if you have a tiny parcel of land that has accrues a UAGC, for instance, at very high levels, that becomes a nonsense, but it is a process that has to be flowed through. So there's many, many different processes around this stuff.
Rates are very, very prescriptive, and it's either legislative or council approved remission policies, or the only other one would be the rebate, which is driven by central government. We get some really interesting challenges, and you try to find the right process to be fair to both the ratepayer in question, but our community that's also paying rates.
Councillor Simon.
Just on 3.9, things like builder consents, compliance and resource consents, with the sort of 90-day plus amounts, people have received their consents or resource consents. Do you have any say what has been approved that they don't pay the bill?
Through the chair, my understanding is we don't actually give that final consent until they pay. And so therefore, the challenge for them would become that if it's a building in particular, they're not going to be able to get their insurance or possibly mortgage, but sometimes that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And we can send them to debt collection, but if they're under dispute, a debt collection can't do anything about that. So then it comes back to the team at hand to find out, to do that examination.
Can I just provide some clarity on resource consents? Because act for a number of councils that have actually got high growth, right? Where they receive a lot of resource consents, there is a risk that if you decline a consent, right, you do the paperwork and you decline the consent and they decline to pay, you've got to then go through the normal civil disputes process. And because you've declined the consent, they don't feel they should actually have to pay. So it's a long and arduous process. There is a couple of councils that when you apply for a consent, you actually agree to their terms and conditions. That basically you're saying is if we decline it, you still got to pay it. And if you don't pay it, we won't accept your next consent application. That's the only way you can actually enforce it. Resource consents if someone, if you decline it, yeah, and you would be, as such a council, your council would be unlikely to have those. It's where you've got the high growth ones where you've got, you look puzzled.
Yeah, through the chair, I actually looked into that process at a prior council and we were not allowed to refuse a consent, even though it's the same person on a completely different, we actually weren't allowed to, we weren't allowed to refuse them. So they
Right.
must have some, and it had nothing to do with our terms. It was actually we weren't allowed,
Legislation,
we
right?
weren't allowed to refuse them. But there could be, it could have been a different consent, but we
Yeah.
weren't allowed to, because that's what I wanted to do. Over a developer and I wanted to refuse, but I wasn't allowed to, I had no grounds.
Yeah, that's the trouble you've got, yep. The other issue is as the liens, often they will dispute the charges as well, right? If you spend too long on it, and that becomes arduous as well.
Happy to move the report.
Okay, all right, I actually won't, no, I
Sorry.
think, no. Sorry, can I suggest, in the report, we talk about being slightly outside of our, treasury policy on 3.4.4, right?
Yes.
And I probably would, can I suggest, happy that you move it, that we actually receive the report noting that we're outside of a treasury policy due to the implementation of the new policy. I mean, it's basically, it's just, I assume, Lorraine, we're going to be on target by year end?
No.
No, I think we probably need that because otherwise audit might actually pull us up on it, right? Being it's a new policy, sometimes audit do that.
Chair, would that just be referencing 3.4.4
Correct.
as part of your recommendation noting 3.4.4?
Yep. The implementation of the new treasury policy. Yep.
What you're referring to? Yes, 3.4.4 if you want to.
Yeah,
reference.
Just putting that, yep.
Jurisdiction.
Of the report, yep. Brilliant, yeah. I mean, it's just a technicality. It happens relatively often around the, but again, I have seen audit where they've actually looked and say you're outside the policy. Did you get approval from council to be outside the policy? Councillor Simon?
Just on that, on the Vancorp report, the comments on that is that the Westpac should have their policies or whatever it is, in place by mid-May. Has it
That
happened?
has now happened, correct?
So,
But we're not going to be restructuring all our debt. It's as the debt comes to an end and we
Yeah.
start putting things in
Yep.
place.
okay.
We are putting for the 5 million that Lorraine mentioned earlier, that will be a 90-day floating. And then we want to look at, we'll start to look at how it's flowing out from there.
Okay.
So we can capture these better interest rates.
Yep. So do I have a second for that? I'm happy to start. Councillor Fee. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Lorraine, in the report. Insurance update 10.3. Take your report as read. Any discussion, any questions? Nothing. Thank you. Do I have a mover? I'll move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Simon. All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried. 10.4, our outstanding audit comments. Thank you again, Lorraine. Take it as read. No highlights, no further information.
Oh, just through the chair, I'd like to highlight the fact that we've got quite a lot ready to close, and I really want to acknowledge the finance team and the wider team that have to support us getting that to happen. So there's been really good progress. I also actually want to acknowledge Audit New Zealand, who worked with us to help us get to this position.
Wow. Nice circle to complete it. Thank you very much. Right? And good effort. Any other comments or, so just a quick question, so just for clarification, we would see that audit. The next report won't actually come before council until the December meeting.
Yeah, this will come through, but we won't have we may not have a sign off by then. Although they would have audited, it's when do we get the report?
Oh, isn't it supposed to be with a week of sign off?
Oh, good luck.
No.
I know, no, excuse me, is that not your engagement letter?
No, they gave us the signal, didn't they, that they would not be doing it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That'll be next year. But they can give me verbal.
I think you'll know if there's issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, any discussion? No discussion, can I have a move of the recommendation, please? Councillor Simon, second councillor Fee. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Next item, 10.5, local water done well.
Yeah, this week's update.
This week's update.
It is a moving feast, very, very much so. So we got notification from Ruapehu that they've delayed their decision again. So they are not now making their decision till the 9th of July. Yeah. So we continue, as Leanne has previously said, we continue to work with Horowhenua and Palmerston North City. So a lot of the work that our transition team has been doing, they're now working alongside with Palmerston and Horowhenua. Wanganui and Ruapehu are still attending those meetings because we are just really uncertain about where they're going to end up. So the transition team have chosen to continue discussions as part of that wider group. What else can I say? So we did get some funding, and I think it's okay to say that we got some funding from DIA to assist us with our transition. So the chief executives met earlier in the week with our relevant group managers about the best way to use that funding, which is quite significant. So we've agreed that having a dedicated person to work across the councils to coordinate our next stage is probably the best use of that. And it's likely that Horowhenua will lead that work, but we are unsure who that person will be yet. There are some opportunities for potentially some internal candidates from other councils that might be assisting in that way. But that wouldn't preclude work being done again with Wanganui or Ruapehu into that regime. So we're aware that there is a huge amount of work to do. So we would envisage that role would, make a program of work timeframe and hold each council to account, but also building on the work that we have already done and bringing that together in a coordinated way. So our water service delivery plans look like they're actually formed as one document rather than pieced together from each council. So it's a significant amount of work, but that's the message we've had from DIA is they want to see a collaborative water service delivery plan, not one that represents three councils that's written by three councils.
Yep.
So working on that, then what does the transition look like, and working through, the stages that will come even after the delivery plan's been sent to DIA. DIA have also said that we're unlikely to get feedback from them till November, maybe December on our delivery plan. So what will happen is we will continue working through the transition phase and every other agreement that's required. But they have said that if there's something significant that we need to address, they're likely to be able to give us an early heads up, but certainly not a signed off document till towards the end of the year. And we're also mindful that we haven't received Bill 3 yet. So we can only anticipate what is in that. And then work towards whatever that new gift will give us.
Yeah, lovely. So I just clarify that the Bill 3 was supposed to be reported back originally.
Now.
It's
Now,
Yeah, that's right.
but I heard it was pushed to late August, probably early September. right?
Yeah, we can't delay.
Sorry?
Nothing.
I know. And that to me just shows you how complex it is, right? And so how you're supposed to make a decision, in theory, I mean, the principles are there, so you can
Yes,
actually
yeah.
start, right? That's, yeah, not helpful,
No,
right? Questions, comments?
I'm pleased to hear the chief executive's approach. I think it's the right way to go, that we do get together with our indicated decision and start to form this. I think a group approach is absolutely the best way. So utilising that external funding to those resources as a group is good. Yeah, no, it sounds like a very, very good approach.
Just speaking back to my question earlier, and you may not wish to comment, but just interested in where you think this is at this stage. Are we likely to be running with 2 other councils or 5 other councils?
that's it.
Crystal, where's your crystal ball? Can I get one for you?
I know the challenges that Ruapehu are having are, there is a strong group of councillors up there that prefer to go alone. And I know they're holding regular, I think it's pretty much weekly workshops with the council to try and get them to understand what a wider model would mean for them and the benefits. And from my understanding, I think Wanganui is actually going to attend their next workshop as well to give them some more perspective. Mayor Andy and Mayor Grant went up to the Ruapehu workshop last week to talk about the model that would involve us, and it got quite challenging, I think, with some of the conversations. And Wanganui, again, there seems to be 2 camps there about standalone, whereas Wanganui probably can stand alone. It's less likely that Ruapehu would, and I think they've come out publicly and said there'll be significant cost increase to their ratepayers if they actually do choose to go alone. And those decisions, even if they make them, may not meet DIA requirements at the end of the day as well either. So, there's a huge balancing act that we just hope, they could see the benefit of a wider model early would make everybody's life a lot easier.
Councillor Pippi, you got
Just a comment around this whole thing. It has changed for us as a council from the beginning. But I think that's with the information that we're getting, and always keeping it in mind is how is it going to affect our people. If we stay, we thought we'd go here, but more information comes in, we change our, we make other decisions. And in my head, we should always be ensuring that stays as the constant, not changing our minds because of somebody else. They've got to make up their own minds. And I'm like Councillor Davis said, happy with the approach that's going in this area that we're taking, anyway, that you're taking.
Simon?
I'm more than happy with our decisions and where we're going, but I'm also very, very pleased that we've done it early. Because we just set our path forward and we don't get involved in all this other stuff. So much easier.
Just if I may add to this conversation as well, I agree with what Councillor Loudon has just said. We were very, very early out of the blocks in this, but we also were engaged with this process perhaps a lot more than some other councils, is my feeling. We have received, I believe, good information from staff and our CE to assist us in our decision making. I just want to be clear that all the steps that we're taking, that my assumption is correct, that anything that we do going forward does not include or exclude any other relationship moving from a 3 council to a 5 council, and it isn't a part of and is considered in any further decision-making processes. If that's my understanding of it, which I think it is correct, just seeking clarity that I'm right in that.
Through you, Chair, that's exactly right. The whole time we talk, even with the funding from DIA, there's a proviso in there that this would cover Ruapehu and all Wanganui joining as well. And so everything we're talking about,
Yes.
and even, the Clive, CE from Ruapehu, messaged the other day saying, we have delayed our decision, but do the three of you still think that if we wanted to join, we can? And we all went back and said, yes, we can.
Thank you for that clarity.
And just one more thing I'd like to say is we also made a deliberate decision to engage and speak with our own iwi rather than a joint approach, which I feel like now in hindsight, that was definitely the correct thing to do. So Te Rupu Ahika have received regular updates and they're appreciative of that. And I have a fortnightly meeting with Ngā Wairakei Ngāti Apa and have the same relationship there that we talked through. We're also planning a hui with all iwi at the end of July. So we will bring them together and we're asking for questions from all iwi so that we can be prepared with as much information as they want us to provide them. If we can answer the questions, that's what we're doing. So we're planning that day with our own iwi at the end of July.
So is that as a formal, sorry, Chair, but is that as a formal meeting or is that an engagement via, is it via Te Rupu Ahika or is it just as a separate?
We opened it up because Te Rupu Ahika certainly know about it, but we also realised that they will probably have other people in their iwi who would like to come along. And so it's been the invitations out to Ngā Wairakei Ngāti Apa plus all our Te Rupu Ahika representatives plus anyone else they would like to bring.
Yeah, but
So
just
it's
as
wide.
a hui get together rather than a formal council meeting.
Oh, it's a hui get together.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I just thought it was that to have that level of engagement and open discussion through a formal Te Rupu Ahika meeting could be problematic.
Councillor Simon as well.
I just on that question, topic, I was going to ask that question, like all the iwi and hapu through Palmerston North City Council, Horowhenua District, are they engaging with our groupings and are you saying there's going to be a separate
So what
relationship building thing with all iwi
Yes.
in the region?
So our preference is to update our own iwi and get all their feedback and listen to them first. And there will be a need for the wider group, whatever, and we will know what that looks like by then. Whatever that wider group to bring those iwi together if they so choose. I think that has to come from them about the working relationship they want to have with each other going forward. I don't want to anticipate what they might come out with that. I know that some of our iwi, and in particular Ngā Wairakei Ngāti Apa, had attended hui with Wanganui and Ruapehu iwi in the past themselves, and have stepped back from that to allow them to continue discussions individually with council. So if the iwi want to work on a collaborative approach, in the next few months, then that would be encouraged, but I think it's their call.
Councillor Fee.
By the end of July, you may know already, I just haven't got it clear in my mind. Will we know what sort of representation iwi might have at a governance table?
No, that's one of the big topics for that meeting.
Right.
Yeah. What their expectation is, I think that'll be good for us to understand. I think they will hopefully have some information they can share with us about what that might look like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, councillor.
So checking out, is there an opportunity for any elected members to attend that meeting? I think it would be useful in our decision making going forward to get a greater understanding.
Yeah.
My gut feeling is I would find that useful.
Oh, absolutely. I don't
Yeah.
think the invites have actually gone out
No.
yet. That's the proposed date that Fran's been working with, and I think she's just checking in that it will be a date that iwi can actually attend. So once that's locked in, then the invitation will definitely go out to all councillors. I think it will be useful.
So just to say, as a member of the Te Rupu Ahika committee, in our discussions around it, everyone that's there as a representative is only the front-facing person of who we're representing. Hence the reason that it was opened up, because there were a number of us who, well, iwi that are sitting there that have other parts to us, you know, piles, that we've got other parts to us of people that maybe that are in that space. It's not necessarily the people that are around the table. So I would say that that it is the right approach to see where rangiteka iwi are at in the first instance, before we try and get into a space where they have done that once. And that was in Palmerston North. We had that here a few years ago now, and that is going to happen again. But yeah, as far as having relationships with, I don't have relationships with them, but there's other people that I'm mandated to that do. But yeah, I would say if we can get a fair gauge of what it is that we're looking at as our rangiteka iwi, then it gives us that step forward into the collective of whoever it could be, whether it's Whanganui, Ruapehu, you know, Palmerston North, whatever that wider grouping is. And because then there's also in my mind, there's also that's not going to be an easy thing at all, because we're making well, you know, we've got it kind of covered in rangiteka. I don't know how well those other spaces have got it covered. And I think it would be useful for councillors to come.
Move to receive.
Oh, can I ask my questions? Jeez, you've done that twice to me, councillor.
Keep you on track, Chair.
The question I have, you put deliberately, I think, in the report, 4.2 and 4.4 about the number of connections. Do you have any further information you want about those wonderful big numbers, about their rationale?
Want me to answer
You
that?
can try, Leanne, that'll be great.
So this is where they changed the funding model on us, which made it quite challenging.
Yeah.
And I think the reason they've done that, I'm not allowed to say this, I think it will encourage collaboration, because you cannot do that. Like the DIA lightly called us smaller councils, the Winston Peters, because we will actually, our little councils will help some of them get over to that 30, 40, 50 connections, 50,000 connections. And that's what they're trying to get us to, because that's when you start to see the economies of scale. And if we go back to that original Labor-led Three Waters, it was all about 200,000 connections, and that's where you saw the efficiencies. For us to achieve that, we would have to be the Horizons region and let's say the Taranaki region. So putting those connections in made it challenging for us, but I understand the driver behind it.
Okay, I'm allowed to have my professional scepticism in here, right? I always had some scepticism over the original Scottish model in terms of the efficiencies that they could actually achieve. I think there's some rationale here, right? But I don't think it's necessarily about efficiencies of number of connections. It's about efficiencies of overheads. Setting up a CCO and running a CCO, whether you've got 10,000 or 50,000 connections, it's going to be roughly the same. That to me, now I defer to my learned friend of an asset manager, right? Bigger doesn't always mean better in terms of efficiency, doesn't always. Often does, but not necessarily, right? And I think the concern I have is that there's been a misrepresentation of what this reform is really about, right? People saying it's going to be cheaper. No, it's not going to be cheaper. It's going to be potentially less expensive, but it's still going to be expensive. You know, and I think we need to, the community, and then that becomes another discussion. Once this reform is underway, I think there needs to be a further discussion about whether it's actually really affordable in terms of what we're actually trying to achieve. Right? A lot of the overseas models are affordable, not because of science, but because of subsidies in various forms. Yeah? Now, at the moment, we've got a government or governments have consistently not willing to fund or subsidise either of the three waters until it literally turns to too much water in terms of a flood or natural disaster. Whether you've got any comments to make about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, to be honest, I think it's been discussed so much in so much detail. I have no more comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Simon, and then I'll ask for a second to Councillor Dave.
I think one of the key drivers is the ability to borrow money and at a higher level because of the bigger numbers. You need that to have a revenue base.
Can I be, right? I'm going to be even more, right? I believe that the reason for this reform, it's not about ability to borrow, right? I think it's about, there have been some councils that have made really good decisions, and there are some councils that have been reluctant to make any decisions and kick the can literally down the road. And I think this focus is also about removing elected members from decision making. That's always been the focus, and put in a professional board who will actually make decisions on providing the level of service at the most efficient cost. Right? And it's unfortunate, but that's, right? You look at all the reforms. Right? That's my cynical, well, I'm not the only one saying that. Councillor Dave, do you want to speak?
No. Well, I'm just in response to Councillor Loudon, I heard an interesting report recently that I was listening to, that when the infrastructure was put in 80 years ago in the 30s, someone did an analysis, and the borrowing at the time was a similar level of borrowing to the 500% is what we're talking about now.
Oh, absolutely.
80 odd years ago.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's exactly what they did. What they're talking about now is doing the same thing they did in the 30s. And the borrowing levels were the same. They used that 500% as a number.
But there's also quite a bit of government subsidy back then as well.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so I've got to move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Loudon, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye, carried. Thank you for that update. Next item, can we move into public excluded? Thank you, Councillor Pickey. Seconded, I'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Yeah, 50 seconds.